Takes Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. The back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big one in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play from scrimmage.
Jumping out of the starting gates for our latest show on the Bearcat Blitz feed. Welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Russ Heltman, on the Believe Network. In what is, it's just been a brutal end of the fall, start of the winter weather season for Cincinnati Bearcats athletics. Things may not have ever felt this down for UC basketball and UC football in the entire time of this 2020s decade than they do right now. Welcome in, everybody. We're getting you into another edition of the show very shortly after the Bearcats basketball team put up a stinker on the road against Xavier. They lose once again at Centos Center. They will enter their next matchup against the Xavier Musketeers on the road, having gone almost, if not more than 10,000 days between road wins against Xavier and the next time they're able to pull off that feat, having last done it in 2001 following a 79-74 loss in the 2025 Crosstown Shootout. We will start off with that and then get to the Liberty Bowl. Everybody is super excited, albeit not really excited about the Liberty Bowl. A 7-5 record has placed Cincinnati in an AAC matchup against their old foe, the Navy Midshipmen, and what, quite honestly, may be one of the worst bowl matchups that Cincinnati could get in terms of being able to see what this defense, which is the clear lagging part of the program, can do with its projected maybe backups for next season in the fold and just trying to build some momentum towards the offseason. You're not going to learn much against the Navy Midshipman offense that plays a style unlike any other team outside of the service academies in the college football ranks. We discussed that and how relevant this bowl game really is going to be after a 4-game losing streak leads into it and more than a month plus between games with the action in the Liberty Bowl kicking off on January 2nd. All that coming up on Bearcat Blitz right here across the Believe Network. We are sponsored by the FanDuel Sportsbook, where right now you can, if you have a hope and a prayer out there, bet on the Bearcats basketball team to win the Big 12. They are long down the odds board right now. Cincinnati has 125-1 odds below programs like West Virginia, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State on the odds board to win the Big 12. They're among the 5 least likely teams, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, to win the Big 12 regular season title in 2026. FanDuel Sportsbook, your place to bet on Bearcats football, basketball. We'll get to the betting line as well once we get into the football side of things on today's show on FanDuel Sportsbook, our lovely presenting sponsor. We love having them along the way for Bearcats basketball and football season. Fresh show coming your way after these messages. Bringing Neil Meyer now from the frontofficenews.com. Check him out there and check me out, Russ Heltman, at Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. Neil, kind of went exactly how I expected in the Crosstown Shootout. Didn't get to preview it with you last week. Great job by Paul Frischner filling in for me. And I was happy to be committing myself to an experience, a once-in-a-lifetime experience with friends and family at a beautiful wedding over the weekend, Neil. I didn't have to experience any of this disaster class until I got back into the city yesterday and rewatched the game. before the show today. Just an unmitigated disaster once again. 79-74 loss to one of, if not the worst Xavier teams that Wes Miller's outfits have played in his tenure at Cincinnati. Miller has now lost, Neil, to 3 separate Xavier coaches. He's 1-4 all time. Just let Trey Carroll put up a 30-piece on his team. A Trey Carroll who put a career high in points up in this game with 14 of 23 from the floor. Only 1 of 5 from deep and 1 of 6 from the free throw line, but did more than enough in this game to will the Musketeers across the finish line. Only other players to score 12-plus points in this game were Filip Borovicanin and Jovan Milicevic. Both had 12 points for the Xavier Musketeers. They got out-rebounded by the Bearcats by 14, and neither team really shot very well in this game. But Cincinnati's offense, Neil, is just completely in the toilet. 38% shooting. They did have 18 assists, but I mean, the ball flow, the ball movement is still non-existent. They cannot shoot the 3 ball at an adequate enough level to justify taking this amount of threes per game. And they're just a bad shooting team. This is a bad shooting team. The numbers are what you are, and that's what the Bearcats are, Neil, having gone 11 of 22 from the free throw line to continue ranking among the bottom 25 teams in the country in free throw percentage, which is a direct correlated stat and a direct correlated motion at the free throw line to how you shoot the outside shot, which was once again an unmitigated disaster. Neil, it feels like Wes Miller and the rest of this talent acquisition staff headed up by Corey Evans have completely missed the mark so far this season on strategy and pairing that with the actual talents and execution level of their players. Is the entire ship built on Jalen Haynes? Because that is an unmitigated disaster in itself if that's the reason they're this bad right now. And 6-3 with 3 losses through 9 games for the second time in Wes Miller's tenure, first time in the Big 12.
Yeah, Russ, before we dive into this game, I just want to talk about the environment a little bit Friday night too as well. I mean, this is the first time I've covered now 6 crosstown shootouts, 3 at each university. This is the first time I walked out to the tunnel, to the court, 3 hours before tip-off, and I got told, F you, strictly by name. And I was, hey, props to you guys for doing that. I think that's the rivalry, but I thought that was cool. I thought it was a good environment. I'd never been called an ugly squid before, so that's a first as well. So overall, but like you mentioned, Russ, it was a unmitigated disaster Friday night specifically, and I want to bring something up on this show. Prior, you mentioned Trey Carroll, right? Cincinnati got to Cintas Center, Russ, at 5:30. 5:30 is when the team arrived. You know what time I saw Trey Carroll walking through the door in the tunnel to the Cintas Center?
4:15. 3 o'clock.
He got there early in the afternoon for a shoot around. He told media, I watched him, Russ, walk back through that tunnel at Cintas Center by himself with assistant coaches and graduate assistants yelling, come on, Trey, you're late. He showed up at 5:45, almost 6 o'clock, in a crosstown shootout matchup, then comes in 30 balls you. What are we doing if you're Cincinnati in a way, right? You have a guy, he's a graduate senior who's showing up basically an hour and 20 minutes before tip-off of the biggest game of his season, maybe biggest game of his career, despite being on that FAU team that went to the Final Four, and he just comes in here and throws 30 on you, and he was getting whatever he wanted. Cincinnati had no answer for Trey Carroll. And I mean, Russ, when Paul and I broke down this Xavier matchup, who were the 2 players we talked about? Trey Carroll and a couple other shooters, but it was specifically Trey Carroll. Cincinnati had no answer. You left him one-on-one every time, despite him playing back to the rim. Every time he touched the ball, Russ, every time. Same thing. Back to the basket, tough hook, left, right, whatever he wanted. Cincinnati had no answer. And during a game like this, you sit back and you question, right? Everyone's questioning it right now. Where were the adjustments? Where was the double
never
teams?
are
Where
any.
was something?
The coaching it's completely inept, and it's on the coaching, Neil, because a top 15 transfer class, a 5-star in Shanabayev. This team has by far enough talent to be 8-1, 7-2 at minimum right now, maybe 9-0 with a top tier coach, which Wes Miller has failed to prove in any sense of the word so far, a half decade into his tenure.
Russ, and here's something more interesting about this Crosstown shootout. In the last 5 matchups played at Cintas Center, Xavier Stars have taken over, and Cincinnati has been nowhere to be found. 2017, Trayvon Blewett, 28 points. 2019, Najee Marshall, 31 points. 2021, Jack Nungy, 31 points. 2023, Quincy Oliveri, 27 points. Trey Carroll, 2025, 30 points. Shout out to Charlie Clifford for providing those stats. But that is this rivalry, simply. Xavier Stars arrive in the biggest moments and they play their best performance in the biggest game of the season. And you mentioned Cincinnati's shot selection. Russ, it was horrible. Horrible Friday night. Horrible. Kirk Carissa goes 2 for 9 from the field, all in which were from behind the arc. Baba Miller's chucking up 30-foot threes when there's
Neil, he shoots over 95% of his shots from 3. Your starting point guard can't only shoot threes. That's almost impossible to operate as a high-level college offense if your point guard does not get into the first and second level of the defense. Continue.
Yeah, and like you mentioned too, I mean, you look at how different this game was. Day Thomas gets in early foul trouble, right? Doesn't play the back 9 minutes of the first half. Cincinnati weathered the storm early to tie this game up at half, despite it having a 6 to 9 point lead the whole way through. They fought back, they fought the storm. Cool, you tie it up at 39 going into the half, right? But then what happens? They just go silent over the first 4 minutes of the second half, and Xavier wasn't doing anything differently. They just came out ready to go, a little bit more juice, and Cincinnati lets them go on a 19-4 run in the first 4 minutes. It is going to be hard to win any game, yet alone the Crosstown shootout, when you come out of the second half after tying the game in a place you haven't won in 25 years, and then you say, hey, I'm just going to crap the bed. I'm just going to go right down my leg. That's basically what Cincinnati did during the first 4 minutes. And there was a couple positives to take away from this game, Russ. I thought Tyler McKinley played his best game of the season, but it's going to be inevitable that he's going to need to be on the floor more than he already is for Cincinnati. I thought he provided a lot of great energy, but Day Thomas is the only soul for the Cincinnati offense. 20 points again on versus Xavier, but the live and die by the 3-ball model, Russ, with this team, it's not it. It's not it.
And I'm so sick and tired of Wes Miller gaslighting. He's just gaslighting us. That's all. That is a direct, perfect definition for what he's done, Neil. He goes into the press conference after this game, not only once, but 2 times, goes from saying, this game is a showing of why we're going to be a good team this season. And then he goes on to say, we know in this locker room we're going to be a great team. And doubles down on it after bat, saying everyone at this table, everyone in this locker room knows we're going to be a great team. Neil, how would you define a great college basketball team in a 31-game regular season? 26 wins? 25? 27? Something like that? So what he's telling us, Neil, is that this team is going to lose 2 more times at most the rest of the season? Is that what he's telling us? Because that's essentially what being a great team is. You aren't a great team at 6-3 overall. You've lost 2 games to teams outside the top 70 in KenPom. You've already lost a quad 4 game at home to Eastern Michigan.
And you have to put it into realization.
Am I wrong in saying it's anything but gaslighting? Isn't this defining the term, Neil?
No, you're not wrong for that. And then, Russ, it's also worth mentioning Cincinnati could arguably start Big 12 play 7-5. I mean, you have Georgia.
Right. They're not going to be favored to beat Georgia in Atlanta this weekend. There's no way, and I will not be picking them to get that game.
And then you also have to think they still have to go on the road and play Clemson at a neutral site. So realistically, Russ, there's a chance this team could be 7-5, the worst start in non-conference history under Wes Miller, heading into a must-prove-it scenario, especially for Wes Miller in his 5th year in the Big 12. I mean, Cincinnati right now, they got to find something to figure it out, and they got to do so quick. You have a week to prepare for Georgia, but Russ, it's safe to say that, like you mentioned earlier, if they built this team around Jalen Haynes in the front court, I mean, yes, his presence would have been huge on Friday night in terms of slowing down Trey Carroll. I thought that was a matchup that would have been
Maybe
really
Jalen
fun.
Haynes isn't known to be a defensive stopper, so I wouldn't go out on a limb saying
Yeah,
that.
but Cincinnati has to find something quickly. And if they don't find it quickly, Russ, they are treading waters to where this could be the worst season under Wes Miller. And it's safe to say that right now. I mean, you have all this money that they threw out there in the NIL world to put this roster together.
Very expensive
And
roster.
and when we were saying very expensive, it is an 8-figure NIL budget that they are working with for those who aren't familiar.
Yeah.
So you throw this out there and
10 plus million.
they are now sitting at what is it, 6-3 with 2 losses to a very struggling Xavier team. First year Richard Pitino, not even the
A
roster he
bad
wanted.
Xavier team. They're like 85th on Ken Palm. This is the worst
And,
Xavier team that they faced in the Wes Miller era.
and then you have a very poor Eastern Michigan team. The only loss, Russ, on this schedule right now that you could have circled in early at the beginning of the season and say, hey, this is a loss because of how good they are, was Louisville. And Louisville has continued to have shown that. But Russ, if they
Right.
want to
And they
make
didn't cover the Louisville game as 8.5 point underdogs. So they didn't meet expectations in that game either.
Mhm. And Russ, if they want to continue to make a step in the Big 12, they're going to have to do so and find some ways quickly because there's a lot of competition in the Big 12, as everybody knows about. Iowa State just knocked off a number 1 ranked opponent for the 3rd straight game, an absolute wagon.
Another guy the
Houston.
Bearcats could have hired in that cycle, but they chose Wes Miller over what's his name? I forget.
TJ Otzelberger.
Otzelberger. Yeah.
And then you have Houston, absolute wagon. You have Kansas, who's starting to get healthy. There is 7 teams right now, Russ, in the top 25 in the Big 12. Think about it. Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas, Houston, Iowa State. The list goes on. But for Cincinnati, they came in this season projected to finish what? I believe 8th or 9th in the preseason polls, if I remember right. Russ, there's a good chance they finish 12th or below.
Yeah. That's where they're slotted in the Big 12
Mhm.
FanDuel conference
So
odds right now.
I don't know. Friday, there was, like I said, a couple positives to take away from this. Tyler McKinley being the biggest positive. It was really great to see him fully embrace the rivalry, hometown kid, see him play his best ball. He really made an impact, in my opinion.
At least somebody
But
did on this roster. A program that under Wes Miller refuses to accept the importance of this game. Meanwhile, Trey Carroll, what did he tell you guys, Neil, after the game? First thing they did when he got to campus for a visit was
showed him
show
the
a
video.
video on the Crosstown shootout. It starts with this game. It starts with your mentality entering this game. It starts with your mentality to own this city as a program. The greats of this program will echo that. The great coaches of this program will echo that. And the current coach of this Bearcats program is nowhere near great. And his team, quote unquote, gonna be a great team, is so far away from that status. It's almost insulting to the fan base. And that's why our publisher, James Rapine, covering the game for me while I was out, called it completely tone deaf, which is exactly what it is. It was tone deaf, Neil. And to close out this conversation, I mean, you and I have talked about this off air and on air a couple of times throughout the regular season. It's just the body language from Wes Miller, especially in these post-game press conferences. He could say all this stuff and lie and do all this stuff and put on a brave face and gaslight us all he wants, but the body language tells the truth. And this guy knows, in my eyes, that it's approaching the end. We're approaching the end of this train. I mean, Neil, they're 1 loss away from tying their most losses in a non-conference slate of the Wes Miller era. And that was in the AAC when they lost 4 games 2 years ago. And they went 11-7 in the AAC. If you lose any more games the rest of this non-conference slate, you're going to have to go 14-4, 13-5. Maybe that's not even enough to get you into the
12-6,
dance.
12-6 won't get you in the big dance. Russ,
Not with 3 losses right now. Well, in my eyes, they have to go 13-5 as of where they sit right now to have any chance of competing for competing for an NCAA tournament spot down the stretch of the Big 12. And we know, Neil, that this team struggles mightily in January. And Wes Miller tells people at the podium on Friday, when this team is winning games in the Big 12 in January and February, we're going to look back on this Xavier night as a positive. Anytime you lose to Xavier, there are no positives to be taken. You have to take that loss and wallow in it because it's supposed to be that important.
Yeah, and right there, like you mentioned too, Russ, because I'm sitting here looking at the schedule, right? So you're saying 13-5 in the Big 12, and that's very much realistic of what Cincinnati's going to have to do. And you
Maybe
don't have
14-4. It's probably 14-4 because it would be stunning if they don't drop one, if they don't go at least 1-1 against Clemson and Georgia.
yeah, and when you look down at this too, I mean, it's not going to be an easy task for Cincinnati. Your first Big 12 opponent, Houston, at home, and
That's
then
a
you
loss.
go
They're 0-9
at West,
against Houston. They're not beating them this year.
and then you go at West Virginia. You travel to UCF right now, where Johnny Dawkins has
Wait,
the
and Neil,
UCF
this
Knights.
is with one road game so far that they are 6-3. One true road game.
One true road game. One true road game. So I mean, things aren't looking good. They're not looking good. And when you're like, I'm sitting here looking at this conference slate, Russ, UCF right now, a team that was expected to be at the bottom. They lost Mustafa Cham and an assistant coach to a Big 12 rival in Cincinnati. They were projected in my media voting, Russ, I had them slotted at 15, bottom of the Big 12, and they are 9-1 right now through the non-conference slate. But most importantly, Russ, looking at this schedule for Cincinnati, you have to play Houston, you have to play Iowa State, you have to play Arizona, who also is a gauntlet right now. You have to play Baylor, you have to go to Houston, you have to play Kansas State, you have to play Utah, Kansas, Texas Tech, BYU. Like Russ, realistically looking at this, you have BYU, top 10 team, Texas Tech, top 15 team. You have Houston, top 5 team times 2.
Right. I mean,
Arizona,
bottom line, we'll go through the
150.
conference slate once we get there
Like
at the end of the
this
month.
is going to
But
be
it's Neil, there aren't 13 wins out there for the
no.
Bearcats this season, let alone 14, which is likely what they're going to have. And if they drop both Georgia and Clemson games, you're going to have to go probably 15-3. You're not getting into the NCAA tournament with less than 23 to 24 wins in the regular season. We've seen that be the glass ceiling for the Bearcats each season of the Wes Miller era. You look at the first season in the Big 12, they go 22-15, weren't ever really in the mix to make the NCAA tournament. Last year, they go 19-16, never ever really in the mix to make the NCAA tournament once the conference doldrums hit in the middle of January. We'll have plenty of time to keep talking about this team. We're running out of it right now to keep discussing this Xavier matchup. We'll be diving into the Georgia game and kind of picking up some more of the pieces from the Xavier matchup with not as much football to talk later on this week. But we've given him so much leeway here, and it's getting to the point where, like, where is the fire? Where is the fire? You watch that entire press conference after a loss to Xavier, your 4th out of 5 chances in this rivalry, and it's just, I feel for the fans. Monotone, no fire, no energy, not that he doesn't care. I'm not saying that, but he's not caring enough to be able to get enough wins out of these rosters. And I don't know what the solution is besides it might just be time for the Wes Miller era to end if this cannot turn around in a major way over the final 2/3 of the 2025-26 season. You never want to call for people's jobs, but at some point you got to call a spade, and that's what I'm doing right now. Wes Miller's not calling what this season so far has been a spade. It's been an absolute turd, and he keeps trying to shine it like it's been a diamond. 6-3 is a disaster at this point in the season for what this Bearcats talent projection was entering the 2025-26 slate, paying way too much running money for this roster to be 66% win rate 9 games into the easiest part of their schedule. Neil, we'll end on this. The easiest part of their schedule, 324th out of 365 teams in strength of schedule so far at Cincinnati, and you're 6-3, telling the fans that your team's going to be great because of this loss. It's just mind-numbing. That's all I can describe it as. Absolutely mind-numbing. And I'm angry for the fans because they deserve so much better. And we've seen that anger, Neil, kind of roll out into empty arenas, empty student sections. The passion for this program is the lowest I've ever seen it in my time covering the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball program. Speaking of passion, Bearcats passionate about getting the football team back in the bowl mix. That's good to see, but unfortunately, probably the least exciting and least impactful bowl matchup UC could be handed. in the slate of games. All that coming up after these messages on Bearcat Blitz, where we are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, and your spot to bet on the Bearcats to take out Navy on January 2nd, one of the final bowl games of the entire year. And Cincinnati opened as a 3-point favorite. They're down to just a 1.5-point favorite in this rubber match between AAC rivals, old AAC rivals, Cincinnati 3-3 all time, against Navy, trying to break that tie as 1.5-point favorites currently on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Point total sitting at 55.5. Head there to make your wagers on the game, kicking off at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on January 2nd. FanDuel Sportsbook, your place to bet on Cincinnati Bearcats athletics. Let's take a quick break and close out the show after this. Neil, you and I were on the conference call last night introducing the powers that be in the Liberty Bowl. Navy taking on Cincinnati on January 2nd, 2026 at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And even with Kansas State and I believe one other school opted out of the bowl game as well. I think it was maybe Arizona State or Iowa State. It was another state. Yeah, Iowa State opted out as well. Neil, even with those teams getting out of the mix, Cincinnati still, and push back against me if you disagree, this is like one of the least exciting bowl matchups possible for Cincinnati fans. You're playing an old AAC team that you've already played 6 times in the past 10 years, and you're used to facing off against. On top of that, Neil, it's in Memphis, which is not necessarily a premier destination for Bearcats fans to go travel down to. Easier to get to by car for most people than some other spots, but you'd like to go somewhere a little warmer, maybe a little bit different weather than what you experience in Cincinnati around that time of year. That kind of further down the line of importance. Thirdly, though, and more important than that is, Neil, I don't know how this game is going to be really relevant for any part of what the Cincinnati Bearcats are trying to accomplish in terms of upping their defensive acumen this season and with this group, and upping the defensive acumen for the 2026 group and beyond. I mean, you're going to be losing Jake Golday and Dante Corleone, who declared for the NFL draft last week. Golday yet to declare, but likely going to. We'll see if those guys play in this game. I would imagine Dante does. I'd be kind of shocked if he doesn't play in this bowl game. Golday, a little iffy. We'll see on Brendan Sorsby. It sounds like most of the guys are going to play. Most of the roster expected to play, according to Scott Satterfield in his comments yesterday. But man, this one landed with a whimper, especially when it's either an SEC team or an AAC team that plays in this matchup, and you get handed the AAC opponent.
Yeah, especially an AAC opponent who has the #1 rushing offense in the country. Easy to say that, right?
So right, against the Bearcats team that was 105th last time we checked in stop rate, and pretty bad against the run down the stretch of the season. I'll dive into those numbers a little deeper here.
Yeah, but overall, if you're Cincinnati, this is a horrible draw. Flat out a horrible draw. And when you look down at this bowl matchup, yes, Scott Satterfield mentioned last night on the Liberty Bowl press conference media availability on the phone call that sounds like most of these guys are committed to playing. However, there have been some people enter the transfer portal. Ethan Green, offensive tackle, in the portal. Kamari Burns hit the portal. There's a couple other guys in the portal as well. So, I mean, overall, it's going to be interesting. And Russ, I'll tell you right now, between some of the people I've talked to and some sources I've talked to, there's teams throwing six figures at Ethan Green right now in the transfer portal, and it's not even open yet as an offensive tackle.
Right.
And first,
we didn't talk about it last week. I don't know if you got to it with Paul, but according to Rick Neuheisel of CBS Sports, 3 separate $4+ million offers for Brendan Sorsby in the transfer portal, kind of cementing, Neil, what we expected of him being, if not the top, one of the top 5 options among quarterback targets.
I said top 3.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue he's the number one quarterback to be courted in the transfer portal, and it would just be stunning if he turned down that kind of cheddar to come back to Cincinnati for what will assuredly be maybe half, if not less than that, on a deal for one final season. I mean, Neil, $4 million is what 5th-round picks get in the NFL across 4-year deals. Mm-hmm. And that would be for one season, which Brendan Sorsby is projected to be a 5th-round pick right now. He may never be a 2-contract NFL quarterback guy, giving even more weight to that kind of offer as assuredly pretty life-changing money at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And Russ, I know you and I are both probably sitting here thinking we know one school that will throw that kind of money out because they did so last year.
Yep.
And it's kind of interesting. We both give that look to each other like we know what school we're talking about. But when you look down at this, like Brendan Sorsby is going to be arguably top two, top three quarterbacks, depending on what they do. It sounds like Marcel Reed's going to return to Texas A&M for what just came out on the Robert Griffin podcast. And then on top of it, you still have Lenora Sellers out there. Now, if he returns to South Carolina, he enters the portal or whatnot. But after that, Brendan Sorsby is your guy. Top
Yeah,
top three,
he's the best
that's
one.
your guy going in the portal. But right now, it's going to be interesting, Russ, because I can tell you right now, like you mentioned, that's life-changing money, right? So if he goes out, look at Quinn Ewers exactly. I mean, he was a guy who started 3 years at Texas, went on to be a fifth-round draft pick, and is making $4 million, $5 million over 4 different years.
Which is
But
what he would have made then one more final year at college if he would have come back this year.
so I mean, overall, it's going to be interesting, right? It really is going to be interesting because Russ, it's worth noting Cincinnati has a whole month to prepare now for this bowl
Right.
game.
And the game is on the day the portal opens, which I wonder how much that affects things. And I also wonder, Neil, kind of similar with the Crown tournament in basketball, there were clear NIL requirements to be committed through the full season. And I wonder how much that plays into effect here. Maybe less so for Sorsby, who could be like, I'll forego my final bowl payment to go and get started on my new $4 million job. That's perfectly fine with me. Other guys less inclined to do that because you're not necessarily going to make that lost money up as much on the next deal.
Yeah, and most importantly, Russ, I think it's also worth noting too when you're talking about the bowl game opt-outs and whatnot. You mentioned the transfer portal. That is a great talking point. There's only one transfer portal window, and it is January 2nd through January 15th. So if you want to get in the portal, safe to say you're probably not going to be playing in a bowl game that's January 2nd. Realistically not. Like, say you go out there and you're saying, hey, I know I'm going to get in the portal, but I'm still going to play in this bowl game. I go out there and I get hurt. I tear an ACL. I tear a meniscus, whatever it might be. Season ender, boom. That is where this comes into play with this new transfer portal window being tricky. So there's a lot of different things to put into consideration. They still have a month to prepare for it. Obviously, for guys like Dante Corleone, Jake Golday, Joe Royer, Russ, if you're going to ask me what my honest opinion is, I would be shocked. I know Dante's from Cincinnati. He's given his blood, sweat, and tears, everything to this program.
Yeah.
But with the Senior Bowl right around the corner in January for him, he's been banged up for the last few months.
That's
I would
true,
be
yeah.
shocked to see him out there, especially with how quickly he declared for the draft, despite being out of eligibility. Dante could have left for the
point.
NFL.
I might say, yeah, I might just take Dante off the board with you, Neil, and just say none of these NFL guys, and probably and very likely not at Brendan Sorsby if he's not going to be a Bearcat. I don't think he's going to be playing in this game, and we'll have that. We should have that news pretty finalized by him announcing a portal entry at that point in the calendar. So yeah, I'm with you. You swung me on that one. Dante with the injuries this year, and like you mentioned, the All-Star games right there after the game. That's just where this bowl game, it seems, Neil, unfortunately, very similar to what the Fenway Bowl was. And You don't have a coaching change this time, but with the way that the transfer portal has gutted the off seasons and the post seasons of college football, they've made the regular seasons a lot more fun and they've made the playoff more fun, but they are just gutting the bowl structure and they're just gutting these programs that, Neil, it's going to be good. The only real positive of all this, I would say, is getting extra time for guys like Simeon Coleman, Elijah Jones, those younger guys down the roster. But other than that, I mean,
and the $4.7 million
you're going to
payout.
Memphis. You're taking a 7-hour bus ride to Memphis or whatever the short plane ride is. It's not some trip you're going to be spouting off about in recruiting visits for the next 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, you also got to look forward to that $4.7 million payout, which is what.
That's true as well. Good point, Neil. The money will always help. Especially at UC, which seemingly will do anything to get that extra dollar, as opposed to putting on a home game at your own facility against a team like Nebraska or a team like Louisville to be able to get those moments and those experiences for your home fans.
If they want to keep their quarterback, Russ, they're going to be potentially digging into that 4.7 million if those offers are true per se. So I mean, that's just the way college football is nowadays, but in college athletics. But you're going to need every penny you can get, especially with the NIL, everything landscape being different. But you're going to have to do something. And like you mentioned, Memphis is not an ideal location. I mean, last time I went to cover a game in Memphis, Russ, I lost 2 hubcaps, and they're probably down in the mountains somewhere. So I mean,
no, those have been melted down for scrap already, my man.
Yeah, those are long gone. It's not an easy drive for the Cincinnati fans either. I mean, I remember that drive, and that drive sucked. But I remember doing that drive, it sucked. So for those making the trip, go out there, have some fun. Yes, it is the first time a bowl game has been played in 3 years for Cincinnati. You like to see the progression they made, but the month of November kind of killed the momentum there. Obviously, you wish you were out in Orlando. I mean, heck, Russ, the Pop-Tart Bowl would have been really nice.
The Pop-Tart Bowl, it's gotten so bad, Neil. The Pop-Tart Bowl is basically a premier bowl now.
And I mean, heck, you're down in Orlando is a lot better than down in Memphis.
Oh, so, yeah, I mean, for sure.
So, and I mean, you think about this bowl game, the timing of it, everything around this bowl game, the timing, especially the date, time, kind of sucks. Transfer portal, day after New Year's.
It's rough for fans. You and I love it, though, Neil. 4:30 Friday kick. Beautiful. We got the rest of our Friday evening to work with.
You have New Year's Eve. You have New Year's Eve on a Wednesday. Those who plan to celebrate, be careful. Drink a little extra. You might need it for that matchup for Cincinnati. You might need to be a little bit hydrated for it. But hey, go out there and have fun. I mean, it's a bowl game. Yeah, it's close distance per se, 7 hours compared to Phoenix or Orlando where they're spread out, a little warmer weather. But for me, Russ, I just think this is a terrible matchup for Cincinnati, if I'm being 100% honest.
Oh, it's not an easy one, to say the least. We'll get to the ins and outs of the Navy midshipmen and how they've fared this season once we get a lot closer to the game and a preview sense. But yeah, kind of the theme of this podcast, Neil. We went pretty serious on Wes Miller, having some laughs on this one. You kind of just have to laugh it all off. And I get it. The fans are not happy right now. I wouldn't be either. But hey, if we told you, especially on the football side, that the team would add 2 more wins and go bowling and do all the things they did this season offensively, you would have taken it at the beginning of August. Wouldn't have taken it necessarily with a 4-game losing streak and a Liberty Bowl appearance against Memphis. But all in all, the team met their goals, and they're trying to keep building towards a 9-win season, maybe. Keep adding 2 wins each year. Go to 11 wins the next year. That's a playoff berth right there. Unless you're BYU, which maybe they have to win 12 games as a Big 12 team to get into the dance. We'll see how the playoff field even looks by that point in the 2-win added timeline trajectory. Hopefully that keeps going for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team, who can get an 8th win on the board if they beat the Navy midshipmen, a slight 1.5-point favorites on the FanDuel Sportsbook, our great presenting sponsor of Bearcat Blitz. Glad you were sticking with us through a little bit of a longer one today, but a ton to get to across the weekends in Cincinnati Bearcats football and basketball. Have a wonderful Monday, everybody.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. This is a big one, too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play